Welcome to the Voodoo Power Podcast.
Welcome to Plates and Pancakes. We're sitting down today with John Kirschner. Coach Kirschner is the head strength and conditioning coach, head football coach, and junior government sponsor at Hamilton Heights High School. Prior to taking over the head coach job, Kirschner worked as the assistant with the Husky football program as a special teams coordinator and has coached offensive line, defensive line, and linebackers. He goes out of his way to provide training to all athletes, and the results are impressive. He is a member of the NHS, SCA, HS, SCC, and is USAW certified. So welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, the opportunity.
Well, we kind of worked this out quick, so I appreciate you taking the time, sitting down, and coming on.
Hey, no problem.
I was digging around on your Instagram a little bit while we were talking, and it looks like you guys got some new Power Club T-shirts. So how do your Power Club T-shirts work?
So for us, it's if you zoom in at the very bottom of the T-shirt, it has bench, squat, clean on it. That's what constitutes the big three. Those are the lifts those are our foundational lifts, or our compound lifts, as I mentioned in our previous conversation. But 800-pound club for boys and then 400-pound clubs for girls is their big three total minimum.
And so once they hit that mark, then they're eligible for a T-shirt. And then is it divided 800-pound, 1,000-pound, 1,200-pound, however high you have a kid?
So correct. So what we do is we have an 8 for boys. We have 800. We actually have 700, 800, 900, 1,000. And I do have boards for those. We have one kid in 1,000-pound club. I'm going to get him a separate shirt made. I haven't finished the design on it yet. And then I have a 500-pound club for girls. And we have 2 girls that just hit that back in December as well. So we're going to have shirts made for them as a part of this whole deal here.
I just run a few numbers off the top of my head. With the clean being your third lift, 1,000 pounds is pretty dang impressive.
It is, especially with the young man who did it. He weighs 180 pounds. He was starting running back, linebacker this year. He was 180 pounds, clean 290, 455 squat, and I don't remember what his bench was off the top of my head, but obviously it had to come out. I mean, he was like 1,000 or 1,005, like he was right there. So, but yeah.
Well, you mentioned it. You have the boards too. I saw pictures of them. Them are really cool. It's like a dry erase board, and then you write all the lifters in. Now, does that change every year, or do you have a record board that goes along with that?
So we do have, I don't have an official record board. I'll just write the records in down at the bottom for boys and girls, just in the small corner. We never really I only had so much space when we redid our facility in May of 2020. So I just write those down at the bottom. And then I do have top 10 body weight coefficients that are in the weight room. And those are based on body weight, and those change every 9 weeks once I get all the body weights and get all that stuff squared away. So those will change. And then I do erase every quarter, or at the end of every cycle. I will erase all, even if 400-pound club. If you made the 400-pound club, I will erase those and put those in. If you dropped to 385, I'm going to put you in a 350-pound club for girls, for instance. And the other reason I do that is because we do have a group that always cycles in and cycles out every semester. Kids will take it semester 1, but not semester 2. And I want the kids that are, on those boards to be the ones who are in class that following semester. And so, the end of the year, I won't put seniors up going into the summer. I'll keep them off. There's no reason, because they're gone. Stuff like that. And that's how I structure it. So it takes a little more work, but I like keeping those boards as much as I can, keep them fresh. I'll be honest, I'm a little behind right now. So I don't know who will hear this, but in the event that one of my Hamilton Heights kids or somebody I know hears it, I am behind at the moment.
Well, when this airs, it'll probably give you a little bit of time. I never thought I would have a backlog, and then I've gotten lucky, and a lot of coaches have said yes. So I do have a little bit of a backlog, and I'll tell you what, from the days when you were just hoping somebody would say yes because you needed something to put up that week, it's a lot nicer. Now, obviously, coaches have to wait a little longer to hear their stuff, but on my end of it, man, it was a ton of stress relieved.
Really?
Now, you went from the classroom to the weight room. You were an AP economics guy, taught in a lot of classrooms. What led you to the weight room?
So I'll have to go back to my high school days. I was in the world of high school strength conditioning, who is considered to be the godfather is Kevin Vanderbush. Kevin Vanderbush was my strength coach. He's one of the main founders of the NHSSCA. And he was my strength coach in high school. I was very fortunate to have one of the best ever. If you ask anyone in the Midwest, or anyone who's a part of the NHSCA, they're probably gonna at least have heard of Kevin Vanderbush. He's finally retiring this year. This is it. He just announced it back in December. He's still at my high school. He'd been there since 1985, and I always had a love for lifting and working out because of him being such a great mentor, and being a role model in that regard. I did at the time in high school, I knew going out of high school I wanted to be a teacher. I also wanted to be a football coach. I didn't know at the time that the world of strength conditioning was going to be the route I would want to go, for my foreseeable future. And I got into teaching, went through college and got into high school football coaching at a couple schools, landed a school called North Central, where I was teaching AP Economics, U.S. History, and was helping run after-school football weights, for our football kids who were in the off-season and not playing another sport. North Central, a very large school, so we had a ton of kids who did not play anything but football. So it was quite a bit different than the situation I'm in now. Then I decided that I got a phone call, and about 4 years after being at North Central, and a friend of mine that had played college football with us said, "Hey, I got this social studies job open. Do you want to come coach with me?" He was the head coach at the time, and I said, "Sure." Then I took a jump. I'd always want to get back to a small town school and teach and coach. You look at my old bio; it was, from my senior year of high school. It said, "Live on a farm, teach, coach high school football." Well, I'm on the farm, I'm the head football coach, and I'm teaching. So I'm kind of living out what my 18-year-old self, dreamed about. So jump ahead, the head coach, who was my friend at the time at Hamilton Heights, where I'm currently at now, asked me to start running the strength program after school for football. That kind of started and transitioned into a couple of other sports, softball being one of them. Their coach reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you be willing to do this for our girls? Because I think they could use it." And slowly but surely it went from, 15 to 20 football players to 15, 20 football players, 10 to 20 softball players. Next thing you know, I'm running an after school program of about 70 to 80 kids a day, 3 days a week, minimum twice a week. Those numbers, Friday, they always kind of tapered off a little bit, back to about 50, up until the spring sports started, because softball was a big component of it. And then track had some kids in it. A lot of football players would go do track or baseball. And so the numbers would taper off in the spring. But what it began to show was there was a growing need. And obviously to you and I, we would have already known that why we need to be weight training and doing all the things that incorporates into a program. But there was not an emphasis on all sports need to do it at the time. It was, the football players lift, and that's really about it. And so what that started to do was show, several coaches got on board, and it started to show the administration that there was really a need possibly for a full-time strength class. And what they told me to do is that, hey, down the road, you need to start thinking about what you need to do if we ever create what we call APC. And it's called advanced physical condition. And that's what we call it. And would you be willing to go do a few things to become that guy, so the person that we fill into that position? Because it was going to be a teaching position they were going to create. The first thing I would have had to have done was go back and get my PE license. So I went and became a certified PE teacher. Then I went and I got USAW, to get that first strength certification. Now I have the NHSSCA strength certification, which is the HSSCC, which by far and away has been an absolute awesome certification to get. Just going through the whole process was very, very good, very, very practical for working with middle and high school athletes. And so that was what kind of got me on that journey of, okay, I'm a social studies teacher who was brought up went through a very, very good strength program with one of the greatest of all time in high school, strength conditioning, to I'm running some after school programs for a couple of sports. Yes, I was a sports coach as I started out. I mean, that's what it was. To, okay, I need to go back and make this my life's career, and be able to do this for the next 35 years until I retire. I don't ever see myself going back. I see myself furthering. All education now is to further my coaching strength and conditioning, and that's the reality of where I'm at, and that's how it started. It's nothing against social studies, but I'm never going back. Nor do I never going back.
I talked to Coach Quisenberry the other day, and he brought up the NHSSCA strength and conditioning, a program that they have in that you were just talking about. Mm-hmm. And he said, for the money, you can't beat it. He said, nope. It's an unbelievable course. It's
practical. The practicality for what they give you is in my opinion, the essence of what high school strength coaches go through. Whether it is when we may get down to the brass, bolts and nuts of what my program is, even the makeup of my kids. Excuse me. I mentioned that I have gen ed kids to a few Division I basketball players or football players or what have you. Where those are few and far between, but the bottom line is I have those. And what the NHSSCA's certification does, I believe, puts it in practical terms, covers a lot of stuff, but I think it puts it in practical terms that allows for a high school strength coach to manipulate what they've learned and apply that to about every situation they're going to experience in the classroom, because it's different at every school. It's different than 10 minutes up the road at north of our school where our biggest rival is.
Now we can come back to that a little bit as we go along, but you mentioned that you're coaching, and that was one of the dreams that you wrote down when you were graduating high school. Well, you moved to where you are now, and you took over a really successful program. So being the next coach after a coach that has had a lot of success, how did that work out?
So it worked out overall. It worked out really well. He's actually still there. He is our dean now, and being a dean, and his kids are his kids are older than mine. Even though we're the same age, he has twin girls that are very big into 4-H, and that's one of the main reasons that he stepped away. He'd been doing it for 7 years, and me being on staff for 4 years previously with him as a part of some of that success. I wasn't a part of the state runner-up team. I came in 2 years after that, but our first year we went to the third round of the playoffs, and so it was an easy transition because I feel like I was pretty well established, at least from a standpoint of coaching and my reputation as a coach, and and also in the community. So it really wasn't a huge transition from the standpoint of having to prove my worth. Per se, and there was never really I've never really felt any pressure to live up to his standards. I am who I am, and I've made my own path in terms of what I do in our football program. And he did a lot of great things, and I've just changed things to fit my mold. And I think the past is the past, but I never really felt, like I said, I never really felt any pressure to be in his shadow. And I know that does happen. Kevin Vanderbush, as he retires, he's been there for 40 years. We've won, that high school has won, I don't know how many state championships, and he's been a strength coach the whole time. Somebody's going to have to fill that role, and that next guy is going to have some big shoes to fill. Great shoes, but big ones.
Now, you mentioned it there, and I thought that I'd read that the past head coach was still there as the dean. So he's out of it. You're running it. I'm sure you rely on him a little bit just to bounce some ideas off of. But how does that relationship work?
So our relationship is still good. He does help us. Like, he was in the box for us on Friday nights. I don't know, maybe half a dozen times this year. He is our offensive line coach, is our principal. He and our OC also works in the building. He's an instructional assistant in our special education department. So those two and Mitch Street, who's the dean, those three talk all the time. Like, during the football season, our OC is probably meeting with him twice a week. And it's gotten down to the point where Mitch or Mr. Street, he'll say, hey, look, this is what I saw on film. You need to run this route combination and you're going to score a touchdown. And then lo and behold, on Friday night, we'll run that route combination against that coverage and touchdown will happen if the kids execute it right. And so that's the relationship that professionally that we have from a football perspective. I don't know that we're as close as we used to be friendship wise when I was an assistant and he was the head coach. And I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason as to why that happened. He's going in a different direction, with his kids and 4-H, and I'm going in a totally different direction, with the strength program, the football program, and my kids. Yeah, we're in 4-H, but my whole 4-H world is wrapped around show chickens, and we're in two different counties that we're doing all of our showing. So it's just, a lot of it, I think it's just life, and the organizations that he's a part of more frequently are not where I am, right? If he comes down to the weight room, he'll find me, but I don't leave that weight room very often because usually I walk in the weight room at 7 a.m. and I usually walk out by 5 a.m. if I'm not at football practice. 5 p.m. I think I said 5 a.m. 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So yeah, no, we're like, if we get together, like, it's still good if that's but we lifted.
I just didn't know how it would be because around different programs you see different things happen, and you got some success over here and you got the past head coach over there, and so you always have people like, what do you think? Well, he's got opinions, so it could be a tough relationship to navigate if both of you didn't handle it correctly.
Right. And I think we have, and like I said, he definitely he was helping us. I asked him 2 years ago when I needed an offensive coordinator. I asked him to be my offensive coordinator, because he has a really, really good offensive mind. So it's been good. And, honestly, I wish he would have come back and coached, to be quite frank with you, but I get it. He just, I would rather him be honest and just, I appreciated that he was so honest with me that he goes, I just can't, I've got too much going on with sheep. That's and his girls. That's just the bottom line of that one.
Now we'll take this a little bit different of a direction right here. You've had a lot of success in football, but not only in football. I saw the other day that you had a two-time state champion wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
So working with athletes that have huge expectations. I mean, that kid had the weight of the world on him going into that state title to win his back-to-back. How are you able to help them navigate what they're doing a little bit and achieve the goals they are set out to attain?
So, and I've talked to, and I've learned a lot over the years in terms of going to clinics and whatnot, but the best thing that I've always been told and I always try is education, is educating the athletes on why they need to do certain things and when they need to do certain things and how they need to do certain things. And, if it's, we need to do bench, squat, and clean, and it's your in season and it's a day of a meet and you have squat that day, maybe it's how we adjust the squat, maybe it's the amount of rep, the load, the rep count, whatever it may be. Education has always been the biggest thing, from the standpoint of getting them to continue to stay the course. That way they're at peak performance. And once you can get them to understand the why or understand why it's so important to be lifting all the time and continuing to stay on the course, when that happens, they'll do whatever you ask them to do. That's the simplest answer is education. If you can get them to believe in what you're doing and why it benefits them, everything else I think kind of takes care of itself. Sometimes you may have to, the sports psychology side of it. I'm not a sports psychologist or anything, but do questions come up? Sure. But the biggest thing that I've taken away over the years is definitely the education piece. The more education you can give the kids, the better off you are. And it goes back to I'm trying to live out our mission statement. I'm really trying to harp it this semester is we want to move well, move fast, and move strong. That way we're at something to the effect we're at peak performance in the competitive arenas that we walk into every day. And I tell them that strong is number 3 for a reason. Moving well is first. And if we can't do that, then being strong is absolutely irrelevant. And obviously most would say probably agree with that.
Now, I did notice on your Instagram that you have for the kids, you have divers at your school?
We do. And they've been in my program for 4 years.
Now, so how does programming for divers look like? I don't know. I don't know enough about the sport. Are they a posterior chain dominated athlete? Or are they more front side? What do you have to do to get them explosive coming off the diving board?
So lo and behold, I'll be honest with you, we're a unified program because I have so many different kids going so many different ways, so many different sports. For the most part, they're going to be doing the same workouts and regimen that everybody else is doing. For instance, like they hang clean, like our one diver, he's in our power club. I mean, he squats 395, hang cleans 255 or 260 now. And bench is, I don't know, 255 or something. All I know is he's almost 895 or might be 900 now. He's close to it. The couple things that I will do differently with them is simple things like eccentric squat jumps, trap bar jumps. I'll program little things like that in, get that vertical motion, that explosiveness to develop a little bit. And they'll have that sometimes programmed into their school workouts. But a lot of these divers, we have a very large program called Rip Fest, and it is located like in our town, 2 minutes from the school. And these guys, one's going to Auburn, one's going to Virginia Tech. And our female diver, she's a junior and she's in my class too. She does a lot of the trap bar jumps and some trap bar deadlift and stuff like that as part of the program. And so I've got all 3 of them on those. Those are 2 things that I do program in for them that they do a little bit off to the side. That, I don't know if that's the best term for it, but it's more predicated towards diving. But they get so much work done diving. They call it dry land, which is lifting, plyometrics, any type of resistance training style stuff. They're going to get in dry land. They're doing all the trampoline stuff, the jumping, and it's all located 5 minutes from school. But then they come back over here to our school during the day and they're lifting with the dive school, which is what they call as dry land. And so what I've kept with them is build that foundational athletic base and then go off and do a lot of the quote unquote diving stuff with the diving school. The coach, I don't remember John's last name, but I mean, he's a world renowned coach. Like he's training kids not only to become D1 scholarship bound kids, he's getting them ready for the Olympics. Like these kids that come in, I mean, if you were to drive through our parking lot during the day when they're there doing dry land or when they are using our pool for diving, I mean, you've got Maryland and Pennsylvania. They come from all over the country. So it's legitimate stuff. These kids are coming in and they're training for Olympic trials. It just so happens that we have 3 homegrown kids in our strength program right now who are tops in the state of Indiana. Like the boys went 1-2 last year and they very likely will go 1-2 this year. It's pretty wild. And I think the girl who's a junior, I think she'll make I think she'll probably be in the state finals this year. I mean, she's only been diving a couple years. She was a gymnast up until high school, and that's where she gets her probably most of her talent from. But to have 3 homegrown kids to be at a small school, to be as talented as they are, is almost unheard of for our size of school. So it's been very, very cool. And to see, if you could see how the 2 boys have pushed each other their entire career in the weight room, has been absolutely special. They've been partners for 3 years, and they're partners even in their last semester this year. I think they've made have set it up that way.
There's probably a very good chance that that's what they wanted. So you need somebody that's going to push you, especially if you both know you're going D1.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to compete against each other. That's the wild part of it. I think it's pretty special. It's been neat to be a part of it.
Now, you were talking about verticals and the vertical jump and all the things you do there. I noticed that you do post your max verts on Instagram, so everybody kind of knows where they're at and where they fall.
Sure.
Increasing the vertical jump for your athletes, is that something you program in to try to help that go, or is that just an indicator of what your other training is doing?
I would say that's more of an indicator of what our other training is doing. I don't specifically drive, we're going to make sure that our verticals are increasing. And right now, I'll be honest, I can't even test verticals because the machine's broke. So the jump mat kind of faded on us here. So we're not even testing verticals, and I don't have a Vertimax or anything else to test it at the moment, and don't have the funding to get it fixed at the moment. So kind of stuck in limbo there.
My rig's pretty redneck, but it's a PVC pipe with an all thread, and then we cut down paint stirrer paddles and drilled them. Yeah, and then built a vert stick, because if you're going to buy one, they're incredibly expensive to buy a vert stick, right? Yeah. So I built it, and then I transferred over from PVC to rigid conduit, and then we bolted it to the wall on wall flanges. Mm-hmm. So it works that way, and it seems to get the job done anyhow. But it was way cheaper than going out and buying our actual vertical pole.
Man, I might have to look into that. It doesn't sound bad at all.
Yeah, we'll get you set up after this is over, and you'll see if it could work for you or not. Heck, I don't know.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Now, this is something me and you had talked about earlier this week, and I've thought about it for a while, but I've never talked to anybody that understood economics well enough to have this conversation. So, understanding what you know about economics, looking at your culture and your team as its own economy, how do you balance that so that the economy is always booming as opposed to in a recession or depression through lack of energy or scarcity mindset?
So I did get a chance to read your article today while I was in between baseball and t-ball for my 2 kids. That's a good question. I was actually thinking about it through my kids and my weight program and football and in a nutshell. So I was kind of expecting this question. And so to keep the answer, a little bit on the shorter side of it, I think one of the ways to keep the economy booming is to definitely try to find ways to keep things from being stagnant. I think there's a stagnation that hits, sometimes some of it's, the time of year, like here in about 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to hit a wall. Kids typically do. And it'll be about 3 weeks before spring break. One of the few things that helps is that we get down to the end of February and we're getting close to max out. So they'll kind of get geeked up a little bit by that. But anything that you can do to curb that stagflation is a big deal. For instance, one of the things, like we're at our 2 weeks, and what I do is I'll take a couple of minor assistance exercises and I'll program in something different. Every 2 weeks, I'll rotate a couple exercises out. Like for instance, one of the things I'm going to do this week is, instead of farmer's carry, on our Thursday, Friday workouts, I'll go suitcase carry. Something simple, minor changes. We haven't had a great last 2 weeks weather-wise. So we've had some 2-hour delays and so forth. But one of the things I'm going to do this semester is I've got kids in teams, and I'm just calling them strength teams. And we're going to do small competitions. And they may be something as simple as, all right, pick one person from your team who you think can do the most push-ups in 1 minute. and we're just going to have a quick competition in the class. And when we can do that and get that whole thing done in less than 5 minutes at the end of class, just to stimulate some camaraderie, cohesiveness within the class, and it keeps things fresh. Every once in a while, I'll get a heartbeat of the class, and you can just tell they walk in, they're 2 shots to the wind, they're dead. And I might just change up the warm up on them. They may do a different warm up. I may just do the order, redo the order. And like, for instance, we may start with, normally we start high knees, glute kicks. We're a dynamic warm up process. We don't have a lot of time with class. And instead I might go high knees, side shuffle, and then side lunge, and then pulls, and it gets them all, it gets them blah, 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 blah. But that stimulates the brains a little bit to not be robots. They understand, come in, dynamic warm up, get on team builder, get our workouts loaded, and go execute the workout. And so I always try, I'm not perfect at it, but I do try to find ways to keep this stagflation, economic term there, from hitting, because I do think when you hit the wall of a semester or 9 weeks or any cycle, if you don't find a way to keep the kids going, it becomes a vicious cycle. And it can cycle quickly. If you can't find a way to keep things a little fresh. So those are probably 2 of the biggest ways, or the easiest way for me is, a couple of new exercises, every now and then. But they also have to understand that there is a benefit to the consistency of the mundane, as someone I once heard say. And if you keep changing things all the time, you're never going to master anything. And we have to move well. Well, that requires mastery. So some of the things, unfortunately, are going to be there, and they're going to stick around. And you just have to kind of sometimes learn to work through some of that stuff. And I do think some of that can go back to education as well. Like, why are we continuing to do what we do? So
now, everything I've read about you is you provide free after school training to help athletes in addition to what you're doing at the school.
Mm-hmm.
How did that get started, and how many kids do you have utilizing that program?
So depends on the season. Wintertime, I've had numbers as high as 70 to 80 kids, just pushing it probably in that weight room. Typically speaking, it ranges from about 40 to 50 kids after school, Mondays and Fridays. My middle school numbers on Tuesday and Thursday, those will range anywhere from 25 to 50. Just depends on what time of year, what sport's going on, and what time of year it is. Summer, when I'm running middle school in the summer, I might have 65 to 70 middle school kids with 2 or 3 other coaches helping me. I'll have a couple of PE teachers come in, and middle school coaches come in and help me with that. So my numbers are in terms of ratio are not bad. I can usually get a 1 to 12 ratio with my middle school kids in the summer. And that's usually runs through the month of June, and then July tapers off. Seems like all the middle school kids go and take their vacations with their families in July. So, but that's typically what we run after school. And then Wednesdays, I don't normally do anything. That's the one day a week I try to give to myself, but also we have staff meetings. We have our professional learning communities meetings that we have every day. So every Wednesday. So it's hard to have the kids get out at 2:30 and then hope that I'm done at 3:15 with my meeting, and having that 45-minute window doesn't always bode well for kids unattended.
Especially in large groups.
Yes, correct. No doubt.
The other thing that I saw that you do quite a bit of is, on top of everything else you do, you get out and watch a lot of your athletes compete. Making time and getting out and watching your athletes go, how important is that?
So it's the utmost importance. I have not been nearly as good as I have in the past. As my kids get older, it is getting tougher. But yes, I did go to our girls' state wrestling finals. I was at boys and girls basketball last night. I watch our boys play for homecoming. I'm going to go to the boys game this coming Friday when we're playing the number one ranked team in the state of Indiana. Our girls basketball is ranked number 2 in the state of Indiana. I went to 3 or 4, 5, I think probably 5 volleyball games. I think I made the only sport I missed in the fall was tennis and cross country. Nothing ever lines up practice wise. In football, I've been to everything except freshman basketball now in the winter. And then usually at some point I make everything in the spring. It does show you care. The kids know, like the laughing stock are with the girls basketball team. They know where to find me. Volleyball, boys basketball, they know where I'm at, and they always look up in the corner. And no, I sit and I hide in a corner in one particular part of the gym, and invariably you'll at some point the next school week somebody will say something to me because they saw me. And I've done that long enough, where they like I said, they know I care. I try to make sure that after every weight session, and I get in trouble by other teachers because I'm not long-winded, but I make sure we always break it down. We always do it loud. We always do it proud, and always make sure that I don't care if it's 2 minutes before the bell rings. All right, what sport you're playing tonight? Good luck tonight. And I always wish them good luck. And it's just that little bit of, a little bit of care that I think goes a long way. And I try to ask the kids, hey, how'd your game go? How'd your match go? How'd you dive last night? That kind of stuff. If I can't make it, I ask. And I try to share and promote as many sports as we can, as much as I can. If I can't get to it, I use social media. I mean, Instagram's where I reach it for the kids. Facebook's where I reach it for the parents. Kids don't use Facebook nowadays. So Instagram is where it's at. And that's as far as I will go in terms of social media at this point.
So you handle all the social media on top of everything else?
Yes. Everything, anything I would post on Facebook from a Husky strength perspective, an athletic perspective, is all done by me. That Instagram page, my X page, that's all me.
So I don't know how far you want to get into this, being you talked about it a little bit, but you've kind of built up with everything you do. You're getting ready to present at the Indiana NHS SCA. You and some other strength coaches.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking about throwing out there as your presentation?
So I'm still in somewhat of the preliminary stages of what I'm doing. Obviously I know the gist of what I'm going to be talking about. It's going to be the dual roles of a strength coach and a head sports coach at the same time. And one of the things I want to try and do is be brutally honest. I'm still trying to think about what can I give, because I've heard so many great coaches speak over the years, at whether it be the Indiana State Clinic. I've been to the Michigan State Clinic several times. For instance, the national convention last year was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm, listening to guys like Tony Holler, Feed the Cats, and Coach Kerfist, Cal.
Yeah, you listen to some unbelievable guys, Corfist and Dietz. Yeah,
Corfist, Dietz, and I Tony Holler stuff. I had 2 hours of stuff from him on my phone because I had videoed, a lot of what he talked in his presentations. And of course, I dropped it off my kayak, lost my phones, and I lost and had nothing backed up. So it's all gone. So that's still a little bitter. But I want to try and be able to give something to coaches who might be like me. They might be new to the profession. They might be at a small school. They might be just in the after-school program. I took on the full-time strength coaching position the same year I took on the head football coaching position. So I took 2 new jobs and created 2 full-time jobs and started them both from scratch, in the fall of 2017 to 18, the fall of 2018. And so I want to be honest, and I hope my honesty is, I want to be able to talk about the goods and the bads. And I want to talk about how I've achieved success, and hopefully by me presenting like what it is and what I've experienced and what I've done with these things, that I can at least walk away and give somebody in that audience something to say, yeah, I can do this. Maybe it is that. Maybe it is, yes, I can do this. They're feeling the pressure because, that I just don't know, because those first couple of years were rough. We weren't winning. We were 2-8 my first 2 years, and part of that I do believe was the strength program, in its infancy, and then we get rolling. But then it's 2020, and we're in the middle of COVID, and that's a whole different ball game in of itself. But we had to build a level of discipline and a level of confidence that comes with the weight room and seeing your progress in there. And year 3 was when we won our first division title in our conference. Well, that was when the weight room really started to make a change. That was year 3 in an education. Year 3 is where you kind of hit your stride. Most would tell you. And so that would be what I hope to have people gain from it, is that when I'm all said and done with my speech, or my presentation, is that somebody can walk away and say, yeah, I've experienced this, good and bad. This tells me, yeah, I can do this. Maybe it gives somebody the confidence to, yeah, I want to be a strength coach, but I'm already a football coach. I don't know if I can do both. Maybe it gives them that confidence to say, yeah, this is doable. It can be successful, but it does take a lot of hard work and discipline. And it is going to take people behind the scenes supporting you, AKA my wife. And she, I don't know that I show it enough, but the support that she gives me behind the scenes when I need it the most is, it's the solid rock foundation that I stand on. And I probably should tell her that more, so, that's where I'm at with it right now. I'm not getting into the nuts and bolts. If they want to ask about my program in terms of the lifting and stuff, but that's not the approach that I was asked to go for. My approach was to go towards the successes that I've had, but I also want to share the failures and the roadblocks that I've hit, and continue to this degree. I continue to hit those because it's an ever revolving door. And so, like I said, I hope that somebody can walk away and say, yeah, I've got this. Yes, I can do this. And this is for me. And I can make a difference at a small school.
And going back to what you said in there, without a supportive family structure, it's impossible. I mean, somebody's got to take care of your farm, because you're not there until it's dark, or Friday nights, Saturday mornings, whatever it is, your schedule sets up. If somebody's not making sure everything's running smooth at home, it just gets that much harder.
Right. And, my wife she's a teacher too. She's a special education director at a co-op school down in Indianapolis. And she doesn't get done. She picks the kids up during the fall. She picks the kids up at 4:30 in the afternoon. She's still doing it now. I mean, I'm running after school weights 4 days a week. And I'm in meetings. I'm going to games. I try to bring my kids and stuff. She takes them to practices, and we've got 30 chickens. We run an unbelievably massive garden, and I have 5 pages of plans how I'm going to expand the garden. We're building a new chicken coop this spring, because we're getting ready to get into show birds. So the bird count is going to probably significantly increase again. But I try to do all that. But the minute football season hits, it goes from, I've got, and I can go into the detail. I'm not going to go into the details of the garden and whatnot, but we don't buy vegetables. We don't buy vegetables. We don't buy eggs. We don't buy meat. Our freezer is full of our own meat. Our freezer is full of all of our vegetables, can, and all that stuff. But the reason I bring that up is the minute football hits, she has to take all that over. She's getting the kids to soccer and we'll be tackle football for the first time with my son this year. My daughter's playing possibly either soccer or flag football this fall, but take that for instance. But then she's got a garden, chickens, watering, and all that stuff that goes with it. And also in some respects, at times she's almost a single parent, because I come home at 7:30 at night, and then I got to do my best to make sure I don't bring everything from the day and drop it at home. So it's tough. And now she had to learn how to, for instance, the one thing she had to pick up this year, she finally gave in, and because I got so far behind, we have 10.5 acres, and fortunately we lease out 7 of it to a farmer to farm, but I got 3.5 acres we got to cut. And so she finally learned how to do get on the big mower and cut now. And it was a huge lifesaver, but it's another 2 hours of her day that she gives up, on a Sunday.
And those first few weeks of football are still right in prime canning season. So there's tomatoes that still have to be canned, green beans. I don't know what all you can, but, just things I could think of that we've done over the past, whether you're making pickles or whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
It has to get done.
Yeah, it has to get done. And so it's Saturday afternoon after the games, our kids' games are over, and then go to church, and it's right back at it Sunday afternoon. I mean, shoot, we can the elderberry, and the elderberry takes, I remember, I think it was like 6 or 7 hours on a Sunday, like the whole day's gone. And that's all. And if you don't do the elderberry just right, it becomes poisonous. We made she made jam out of our homemade jam this year, out of our grapes this year. And we had a grape harvest there, but it takes a lot of time. And here I am sitting on a computer watching film. I mean, that's what I'm doing in August and September. I'll go out and I'll harvest on the Saturday and Sunday, but the minute that's done, I've got to go back to film. Like, it's 5, 6, 7 hours of film on game planning and phone calls and Zoom meetings like this and stuff with the coaching staff, just so we can be at home. And then she has to go through the process of either getting it ready for canning or getting it ready for freezing the right way. And so it's a lot of work. There's no doubt.
Building on to working in a small school, embracing the role of filling the voids. It takes a special person to be in a small school, because there's always, I'm sure every school, there's a hole somewhere that needs to be filled, but especially in a smaller school. On top of everything you just said, how are you able to do that and still continually fill the voids?
The voids at home or the voids at school?
Well, we've kind of talked about the voids a little bit at home. Sounds like you got somebody kind of helping there, but what about at school?
Well, it depends on which void you're referring to. Give me an example. What are you looking for?
I mean, the voids. I don't, but I'm sure somebody's like, Mr. Kirschner, can you do this? Coach Kirschner, can you fill in here? Coach Kirschner, we need somebody to help with the concession stand. We need somebody to chaperone prom. We need embracing all of those asks and getting them accomplished.
So I actually am in charge of prom, and I'm also in charge of all of our homecoming dances. So some of those voids I took up 9 years ago just by simply becoming the junior government class sponsor. So I have our fall or winter formal this coming Saturday. So I won't be home. I'll be gone all night Saturday night. I'll probably get home about midnight. When I can, I will fill those voids. I'll be honest, I don't fill those voids as much as I used to, because my kids are older. When I was in my late 20s and early 30s, I did a lot more, and could do a lot more. But I know what weightlifting isn't as bad. I know what football has taken away from me when it comes to my kids in terms of time. And so I am a lot more hesitant to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to go work a concession stand, or I'm going to go do this, because my son and daughter need me. I will not sacrifice certain things for my children. Certain things of theirs. Like, I just won't miss it. So, and I've had conversations with even my father about it, and I remember him last spring. I don't remember what it was. We were at right after my son's baseball game, driving rainstorm. We're sitting there eating dinner afterwards in town. And he makes a comment to me. I'd said, like, yeah, I missed something football related to make sure I was at my son's playoff game. And he goes, there's no way, you're different than me. I would have missed your game and for football practice. And I love my dad. My dad juggled being a 3-sport coach while we were all growing up. And I'm the oldest, and I got 2 younger sisters. And from like that, to me, said I'm doing it right in my mind. I'm juggling as much as I can, taking care of and being involved in a small school where more and more, it is harder to find people who will get involved beyond 3 o'clock. And it's nothing against the teachers. These may be great teachers, but they're just teachers. They go home at 3 o'clock. It's hard to find coaches. It's hard to find people who get involved. I think we have some great teachers at our school that do that, but it does fall on a few teachers to do a lot. And I'll be honest, I think I've gotten burnt out a little bit over the last several years. And so I've backed off from some of it. But the main driving force is making sure that when I am around, I'm father as much as I can be. Because I don't want to say what my father said to me last spring. Like saying, I love my dad to death, but I also want to be honest with what you asked me.
Now you run a linear periodization.
Yes.
What led you to that over a block or a conjugate? What kind of led you down that path?
So Kevin Vanderbush, it's what I always knew. And I've always seen, and I personal experience, and my personal success through his program, was the driving force behind staying with what I've always known. And I saw the results, and I still see the results with what he's doing. And so from that perspective, staying with the linear periodized process, I started out 6 years ago doing it, and I'm still seeing success today. Now, have I manipulated what we do based upon especially major assistance exercises? Sure. For instance, when I was in school, we did sets of 12. I don't do sets of 12. And it was 3x12, and I never did 3x12 as a coach, and I don't know that I ever will. I have moved down to sets of 10 for starting out, and even then, like week 1 was 1 set of 10 just to simply get moving again. Because I think anything beyond that, we were going to get so sore that they weren't going to be these in-season athletes. We're going to be able to walk, and so that actually goes back to a little bit. You asked me that question about keeping things fresh. It's not playing mind games, but like when they see, oh man, they're dreading. Oh man, they used to dread. I got 3x10 coming in. Well, that was like 4 years ago. Now it's like, oh, I got 1x10. Okay, I can do that. That's no big deal. And so I got them 1x10. The load that they were supposed to do, they're actually loading like they're supposed to, a good majority of them. And now all of a sudden I've got them lifting where they need to be, and we're slowly progressing into it. And they aren't like so dead and sore that after a 2-week break, they weren't so dead and sore that they can't walk. And there was no complaining that they had a conference wrestling tournament on Saturday, but they were sore during the whole tournament. And they weren't. Diving, swimming, they weren't complaining, and so that's the main reason I've always stuck with the linear periodization process. Is I personally experienced success with it. I know Kevin Vanderbush is still seeing success with it. And I have taken it and put it into my program, molded it into what we do with our foundational lifts, our compound lifts, and it's had success, and it continues to have success. But I am not, if you were to look at Kevin Vanderbush's stuff, he is pretty much an upper lower split twice a week. I am not. We only truly lift 3 times a week, as I mentioned earlier to you. And I'm still, I switched some of that up 4 years ago to fit what I think our athletes needed. And some of it was based upon the class schedule that I had from how many times a week I saw them. And it's benefited us. Our clean numbers stay up, and that's really the big one that I focus on. I like squat, but bench is just for kicks. I think bench is good, but it's not the measure of what our athletes need to be doing well to find the greatest success on the court or the playing field or the mats. That's just what I found with our kids. And so we do stay with that periodized process. It like I said, I've formatted it a little bit differently to kind of fit what we do. So,
yeah, it sounds very Epley Vanderbush centered. I know everything you just said kind of falls right in line with how those guys progress their athletes, and it seems to be working for you. I mean, you had an 11-1 season this year and lost to the future Indiana State champions. So you're seeing success. So why change something that's working for you?
Correct. And you can take a look at, if you take a look at the sports over the last 3 or 4 years where our program has really gotten growing, we're averaging about 240 to 260 kids a semester continuously. And it fluctuates for various reasons. But the bottom line, the more per capita, go back to economics a little bit, per capita, the more people that are on a team that are in APC full time, the higher the number per team, the greater success they are seeing on the field and the courts in terms of their wins. It's night and day. Or look at their numbers and see their production in the weight room when it comes to their maxes, their jumps, all those different things, that their metrics. Take a look at their metrics. The higher the metrics, the better off the sports teams are. The ones who have the highest metrics and the ones who have the most consistent high number of kids per team in the class, they're the ones that are seeing the greatest success on the courts. Now, yes, Jimmys and Joes sometimes equal Jimmys and Joes, and we all know that. You get a D1 kid and they're just better than everybody else, then fine. But when they're not, or when they are working, there's a difference.
We had discussed this earlier, but I think you raise a really good point. In a small school with the turnover of athletes, there's droughts. It's just how it is.
Correct.
How have you offset that through the weight room?
So we're at a peak right now. Our senior class is very large, very talented. We have 4 senior girls basketball players, 18 senior football players. And volleyball's the oddity. They were top 10 in the state all year, but they had 1 senior. Their D1 girls are all sophomores and juniors. And what happens when those droughts, prior to the weight room in our strength program, I saw a couple droughts come through, but what happened was we fell off and we fell hard. What the weight room has allowed us to do is to remain competitive, because I do believe there's a level of confidence that the weight room breeds, and that confidence is shown and carried out on the courts, on the fields, on the mats. Like, when you can call it swagger or whatever term you want to use, moxie. But when you have that, when you know that, yeah, I'm still squatting 350 pounds, you may not be the most skilled guy. You may not be the lineman that you just replaced before you, who's going to college to play offensive line or was an all-state lineman, but you're only squatting 30, 40 pounds less than him. There's a level of confidence and self-discipline and work ethic that has been instilled within our kids, that if they commit to the process in the strength program, they're going to see and carry that out on the football field or the soccer field or the volleyball court, because it might turn a C athlete into a B athlete. And some of that is hard work and perseverance. And so I do think it has built a level of confidence inside our kids that, even though we may not be the most talented, I've put in the work, and now that we're winning, like, we could take you. I don't care who you are. Like, I'm strong enough to take you on. You might beat me, but darn it, I put in the work, and I'm going to fight you, and I'm going to fight you to the bitter end. I really do believe that's what the weight room has provided for us, is that when we do go through our lulls, the lulls are not as bad as what they once were when I was first here. We're competitive still, and we're gonna rise again. It's coming. We might see a small lull, but they're not what they used to be, and it's very exciting to see. So I hope we continue this process of our strength program of growing, because the benefits behind it obviously are pretty self-explanatory in terms of what we're seeing with the results.
Well, before we move on, I want to give the tip of the cap to your usage of moxie. That's not one you hear all the time, so maybe you'll bring it back.
Yeah, that's an old one.
Now you're a percentage-based program, and you move out from hypertrophy into the strength phase.
Mm-hmm.
How long will your cycles of that be? Like 10, 8, 6, then you'll drop down to the 4, 2, and then you'll kind of finish up with the 5, 3, 1. Are they on a loop, or do you set accessories in there that's more hypertrophy based with your max lifts being more absolute strength based?
So everything is 10, 8. It's 2 weeks. 2 weeks 10, 2 weeks 8, 2 weeks 6, 2 weeks 6, 4, 2, and then 1 week of 5, 3, 1, and then we'll max. That's what we do. And then what happens with your accessory lifts? The accessory lifts will start out two sets of 10, and then they will go 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 8. They'll jump to 3 sets of 8, and then a lot of them will stay at that 3 sets of 8 mark. They'll stay in that hypertrophy range. What I will do is I will take the like, for instance, I'm thinking, so the unilateral stuff, I will move those from sets of 8, 2 sets of 8, where the kids are staying lighter, to as we get towards those, that sets of 6 to 6, 4, 2. I will drop down to 2 to 3 sets of 5, so the kids are getting heavier with those, your single leg deadlift, your single leg squat variations, and maybe a lunge of some sort. There might, we do the various lunges and so forth, and so those will shift to a heavier progression. The upper body stuff, those assistance lifts, except if when we are, because I program in bent over rows with a squat, our back squat. They'll always have rows with back squat. And so if we are at bent over rows, I will move those down, and we'll start at 2 sets of 10, and we will work bent over rows down to more of an absolute strength phase at the end. We won't get to 5, 3, 1 or anything, but we will get down to sets of 6, and start bordering that strength to getting out of that hypertrophy and going into that strength phase. But for the most part, our upper body is going to stay at 3 by 8 and whatnot. We don't go into the whole strength phase. I don't see us maxing out on a dumbbell curl.
Right. So you're taking a 1 rep max twice a year. Is that kind of how that works out?
We'll go 4 times a year. So we're a quarter. So we cycle in 4 9 weeks. And so we will go in and we'll max in October, we max in December, max in early March, and then max the end of May, early June is what we do. Our cycles are about 9 weeks, 8 weeks, I guess.
Okay. I had doubled that up. So that's where I was coming up with 16 weeks. So yeah, that's where I'd come up with 2. But you lift 3 days a week, and then you have like a speed plyo day, your 4th day a week.
Yes, sir.
From what you said. So what does the speed plyo day look like?
So that is going to be a 45-minute class period. We will go, assuming we have gym space, and I have been, over the years, I have had to jump around and figure out what is the best day. We have 1 gym at the high school. We have 2 little auxiliary things up top, but we have so many different programs at our school that are using the gym, recreation games, PE, just in other programs that we have at our school that have access to the gym. And so it's always been a constant free-for-all when I can get all my classes in the gym at the same time. So right now it looks like Tuesday this semester is the best day where I can get them all in. That is a 45-minute class day. And the reason I bring that up is because Thursday and Friday are block days. So I have 90 minutes per class. I used to do plyometrics and agility on those days, but I shifted away from that. You want to know about that? Why I do that? I'll tell you that later. But we will come in, we'll do a warm-up, we'll do a dynamic warm-up. We will then, sometimes we'll go through our mobility drills. We always do mobility on Thursday and Fridays. We'll do mobility drills. Then we will start with our plyometric circuit. Various jumps. We will work snap downs, single leg snap downs. Then we will go into our jump sequence. And then we will usually go into a type of jump sequence where it's vertical, and then we'll start moving. So your broad jumps, your zigzags, or your ski jumps is what we call them. In lateral jumps, single, bilateral, unilateral, and all that stuff. And so there'll be a sequence that we go through there. Then it will either be a variation of a speed running form deal. We'll do something that I picked up from the NHSSCA's certification is I will go through a series now, just work on running form. We'll do wall drills, where you're driving the knees up, working on dorsiflexion of the ankles, and we'll do wall drill. Then we'll do a march, then a run, or a march, a skip, a run. And then we'll go through, this is something from Tony Holler. We'll go through where he, again, I don't remember the name of it, but we take the arms out of the running and we'll work on that top end running form. And we'll take, we'll go the gun, and then he goes like airplane, hands over the head, and then we'll bring the arms back in. And that might be a day. That's probably all I'm going to get done in that day. If I have time, I will then work on acceleration at the end for a few reps. And that acceleration, depending on how much time that I have, will be a few steps, just working out, coming out low and working on those first 3 steps and rising versus just standing straight up. That might be what we work on. There also may be a reactionary piece to it. A lot of times, I know what I found to be very beneficial to the kids is I will take maybe, I got 10 lines. Let's get the first 10 kids up. They may be in a split squat position and they're just working, on set go, they're going to take off and sprint maybe 5 yards and just working out, coming out low. We'll do that obviously both legs. That may be what we end up with. I can come in on a day and we're going to have reaction ball drills. They love reaction ball drills. They're always competitions. They get a lot of work in very quickly. That I only have 5 of them, but I might have 45 kids in a class. I have all, we can bring in every cone drill known to man. However, I'm the only teacher in a lot of my classes, and I don't have a person to run every drill. And it is hard for me to stand in one drill and then expect a student to run another drill and not getting those kids coached. And so I have to come up with a plan that fits my ability to get the kids to move at every facet of plyometrics, agility, and speed in a big group setting where I'm the only teacher. Maybe my approach is wrong, but I found that how I do it, I have seen benefits with our kids, and it works and fits within the time frame that I have, the equipment that I have available, and what I think I can actually execute when I'm one out of 45 kids. I have 3 classes that are over 40 kids. I have 3 classes that are between 28 and 35. It's a wide variety. And then my basketball coach runs another class of ABC that has 38 kids in it. So he's juggling not only all of that, but he also has to juggle and try and execute a program that he isn't even the owner of. And so that's tough. And so that, I hope that answers your question, but that's what I do, because I think I have found a system that benefits our kids, but B, it also allows me to get the most out of the kids on those speed and agility days in a big group setting where I'm the only teacher. Now come to me in the summertime when I've got a basketball coach, 2 or 3 football coaches, a girls soccer coach. All of a sudden we're running 70, 80 kids and we're doing 4 or 5 different drills because they all understand how to execute them and they can coach the kids up. And I feel a lot more comfortable because of the number situation that's there from a safety perspective and a coaching perspective.
So my follow-up question to some of that is, why did you choose to do max velocity work over your acceleration work? Why did you choose to keep acceleration at the end and put max velocity in ahead of that?
So typically it's one or the other. I think we are better. For a long time, I spent working on acceleration with our kids, and we've gotten pretty good at it. And right now, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know that I was as comfortable with that top end running as I should have been from a teaching standpoint. And now through going through the NHSCA's certification process, doing my own studying, listening to Tony Holler last summer at the national convention, and I'm gonna botch his name, Forquist or
Corfist.
Corfist. Yes, sorry. Listening to those guys talk, I now have a much higher grasp of that top end running for them, and I have a plan, and I feel confident about executing that plan. So as of late, especially last semester and this early semester, I have been putting more emphasis on the overall top end running and that max velocity stuff, to play a little bit of catch up. And if I'm being completely honest with you. And so now, as we get better at this top end running and our max velocity is increasing, and now that I'm able to test flying tens and things like that, because we got a dasher timing system back in November. Thank you to Mark Hoover for recommending the dasher timing system. We got the blue version, and it's been phenomenal. And it's a great little metric, and it's an easy, quick metric to test. And so I absolutely love doing it, and the kids love doing it. That's why, and so now what I look at as moving into the second 9 weeks of this semester, what we will be doing and what my plan is full time is it's one week it's going to be top end speed, and another day it's going to be acceleration and deceleration. And that's going to have to be what gets done, because I don't feel that I have enough time to cover everything. And it's a give and take for me. But to answer your question, I understand that where you're going with it. Like, why when you do acceleration first, then do the top end speed first? I'm playing catch up right now. And I went and made sure that I got the education to do better by my kids, I guess.
And I'm kind of torn on it, right? I mean, is being better prepared acceleration going to carry over to the game better than top speed? I don't know. Yeah, you got a kid that can run 24 miles an hour, but how many times a game is he going to touch it? Where he's going to accelerate, let's say he's got a 10-yard route, and then he's going to break it off, and then he's going to be in acceleration again. But everybody has a different opinion on that. Does top speed build acceleration, or does acceleration build top speed? And it's like chicken and egg. Everybody's going to give you a different answer. So as long as you're getting the results you want and you're showing success, which obviously you are, hey, you got something going on for sure.
Right. I would agree with that. Like, I don't remember who I was in a conversation with the other day. Actually, it might have been my father. He's still coaching football. So we talk sports and we talk training, and he was a strength coach there for a while. He ran a strength program at another school he was at prior to where he's at now for a few years. And he worked with Kevin Vanderbush as kind of an assistant to Kevin Vanderbush for a decade, because he was the head football coach at Ben Davis. And we were just talking about that debate on top end speed versus acceleration, and which was more important, that same conversation that you just brought up. And I do think it is a good debate. Running that 20 mile per hour for a boy or a girl running 18 miles an hour, whatnot, that's great. Like, I went to my track coach and said, hey, you need to recruit these kids to run track. But at the same time, these kids also have to do acceleration drills, and move every which way on twice on Sunday, and be able to jump out the roof or out the building, because they play basketball, they play football, and they play volleyball, and they play, all the sports, everything that requires jumping and cutting and all of the stuff that we train all the time. And so I try my best to hit as great of a variety of things as much as I can with the time that I'm allotted within the framework of the time, the tools, and the number of kids I have. And I feel like I've gotten a pretty good system down for what fits me and what fits our kids. And I have to be diligent with when I do that, because they're always playing. They're always in season. Shoot, my off-season volleyball kids, softball and volleyball, they're playing full time. They're playing in season, out of season, indoor softball, and they're traveling all over the country to play volleyball right now. Two of my better volleyball players missed 3 days of weightlifting because they were in Texas for a national tournament. It's year round. So I have to be diligent on when we are doing that plyometric and agility. And Thursday and Friday aren't it, because those are our biggest competition days for the in-season athletes, and really the out-of-season athletes too, if they're playing a club sport.
Yeah, you're constantly juggling. And kind of going back to kind of wrap up the last conversation, you know, about the time you start maybe thinking acceleration's the key, well, then somebody hits you with the stimulus that the top speed brings. So you can't copy that in a weight room. So then if you're not touching top speed, well, you're not getting the stimulus. So they go hand in hand, but it is a great conversation to have and kind of feel out what the other coach is thinking and build on it and then create something like what you've created.
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt.
Well, Coach, I know I've had you on here quite a while. It's Sunday night. You got to get ready for school tomorrow and probably want to spend a little time with your wife and kids. There's a little bit of a time lag there, so it's later there than it is here. But I really appreciate you taking some time and sitting down and having this conversation.
I really appreciate it. I don't get to do this a whole lot, so it was a lot of fun. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Coach, and I hope you have a great evening.